This is the video review for Daigunder Deathspecter. Deathspecter is a decent toy. He comes from the toy line Daigunder. Daigunder is a sister series web diver. I know some of you were expecting me to do another web diver figure today. I'll get to Ruturion and Kerberion and Golemon soon enough, but Daigunder is a sister series to web diver. Has the same basic idea behind it. There's a larger figure named Daigunder, who is a video game. He connects to the TV and there are buttons on him. And then there are a bunch of accessory figures like Deathspecter here. Like Deathspecter turns into a gauntlet, his wings go back and forward, and then there are clips on his underside that attach to Daigunder's hand. It's very underwhelming. But then after you do that, he appears in the game and changes how it plays a little bit. Same basic concept as Web Diver. Now, Deathspecter here, you may be wondering why it looks like some of his parts are over here, and why they look like legs, and why they look like they're broken. Well, that's because they are legs, and they are broken. As you can see, this is his thigh. As you can see, it catastrophically broke at the hip and the knee. This guy's legs are horribly designed. The joints are really thin, like the things actually grip onto each other to form the joints. Super thin, which on a normal Transformers figure that would be bad enough, but the plastic was really brittle too. And I don't know if this is gold plastic syndrome, or if it's just generally brittle plastic and the joints were a bit too thin to be able to support themselves with the properties of the plastic. Nothing else on this figure really seems fragile, although the wings and this back area and the head are made of the same basic plastic. I don't know if this figure is going to break on me or not. That's one reason why I don't recommend this figure. Although he does end up being quite cool. We'll get into that later. But his legs broke off, and he's cooler because of it. We'll get into it. So these broke, and then something else you need to understand about this figure. These are the legs. They are made out of very soft bendy plastic. This bendy plastic, while not ideal, it is a bit better quality than the other plastics. Like, I can bend this foot up and really bend the plastic, and you can see a little bit of creasing in there, but I think that's more the paint breaking up. This plastic, it's not what I ideally want in a Transformer, but it's not as bad as it appears. It bends, but it goes back into shape, and it's fairly sturdy. His arms right here have the same bendy quality to them, and at first I was concerned that would break. It's not going to break, neither will this. This is the same gummy plastic. Now, he is a pterodactyl, or pteranodon, or whatever it's called, and it is very nice looking. He has that nice broad wingspan. He has a fairly nice head, although the eyes could look a bit more forward. And overall, I do like this. It's a nice design. The only things that really detract from it are these that stick off the end. Normally these blades here are off to the side, but that ends up looking a bit more messy than I like. These things are his weapons. They are scythes. They just pop out, and he can hold them in his hands very poorly. But what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to take this out, give this a longer stem, and we'll put it off to the side for now. You can put them both on like this, but I'm not going to do that. It looks silly, and they've come apart. Well, they come apart very easily. But just one scythe on it ends up looking pretty nice. Actually, I'm not going to put it off to the side. I'm just going to put it right here so I won't lose it. It's what I usually do. And then, yeah, put this off to the side. And, oh, before I go any further, I do want to show you what he looked like in this mode when he did have his legs. You can see a picture right there. His legs form the kind of claws that sit under these wings. But it doesn't look as good as it looked in this picture. As you can see, there are little red stems right there. The legs pegged into those, and they didn't really come up to the wing. They hung below, and it just didn't look very good. So I'm glad he doesn't have his legs anymore. For the sake of this mode, you'll see what happens in the next mode. His actual robot mode looks like this with the legs, and this looks pretty badass. I do like the way this looks, although it's more photogenic than it is good. The legs, like I said, they were crap. They were loose. They were just crap, and they kept bumping into this. You'll see what I do now that he doesn't have the legs anymore. And you saw how his cape was closed, or his wings were closed. That's what he looks like with the wings opened. He is a pretty cool looking figure. we'll get to what it looks like now without his legs. So, his wings can flap up and down. A fair amount of articulation. It could be better, but it's not bad. His head can look up and down, although no side-to-side motion, unfortunately. His arms bend back and forth, rotate above the elbow, and go back and forth here. No in-out movement. That's a shame. And the transformation for this guy, it's fairly simple, but I do like it. It's very effective because it takes him from a very convincing robotic pterodactyl to a fairly interesting robot mode. Now, granted, without his legs, which, well, you'll see. I keep saying you'll see, but you will see. First, you fold down his head like this, bend it around, bring his wings back, which will also bring his arms up because they're kind of hinged together, and then you will bring his head up. And this is the basic robot mode without the legs. And remember, his name is Deathspecter. I think without his legs, he ends up looking like a Deathspecter. I mean, it almost looks like he's a wyvern. Haha. Shout out to all you guys looking for Wyverion. I'm talking to you, TJ Omega. He does end up looking like a wyvern. Kind of a dragon-like thing with no hind legs. But the thing I want you to pay attention to is, what is his face? Is that skull a helmet and there's a face underneath? From a distance, it kind of looks like that, and it's distracting. But if you look up close, you're probably not going to be able to see this, but there's no actual face detail. It's actually his esophagus. But this looks like a helmet up there with how forward back it is. Now, you can alleviate this a little bit by pushing it forward, but that is still not my favorite head. It still looks just way too far back. So what I do is I actually rotate it around, which gives him a well-defined beak and more well-defined eyes. And I like the way this looks a lot better. Now, unfortunately, it does give you that gap back there, but what I do to fix that is I wrap his wings around him. And when I was talking about the box, I said that it looked really cool, and it does look really cool. I love the way this looks. I mean, this is the reason why I bought the figure. The way it looked on the box, this is why I bought the figure. This is why I thought this figure would be a good idea at all. And, yeah, I mean, now, the thing we really need to get into now is this thing. This is what makes this figure work without his legs. Like this, he looks pretty decent, but he's not really threatening. Now, his mouth is actually a missile launcher, and the stems to the sides are the missiles. Put into his mouth, and click. And now he really looks like a Deathspecter because he has a big, long... He has a big, long scythe attached to him. Just imagine go... Or... I mean, this just looks so threatening. And I love the way this looks. He's pretty cumbersome in this mode for trying to get him on camera. He's not going to stay on camera, but I just love the way this looks. He has this nice skull-like head. He has a cape around him that makes him look protected and menacing. And then he has this nice long tail scythe. I just think this looks badass. And with his legs, well, I suppose you could have folded his legs behind him, but then you wouldn't get the neck articulation, or the tail articulation like this, which is kind of important for making the scythe have any kind of posability. So having his legs off gives him a much better robot mode. I was surprised. I mean, when the first leg broke off, it's like, oh, god damn it, the leg broke off. Might as well break off the other leg so I can figure out how I'm going to fix these. I did it. It was like, oh, holy hell, this is awesome! So, yeah, I mean, I really, really like this. And you can open the wings too, and for the most part, I like how he looks with his wings closed, but with his wings open, he does still look very intimidating. I mean, this design for the figure without the legs is just so cool. I wish the designers had really thought about what this design was, because even with the legs, the general design for this guy is very nice. I like the way he's designed, or the overall design, even though the joint design and materials used just tear this thing down so much. I wish they had thought about what this thing could be like this. I wish they had included a stand and made his neck more posable. Because the way it usually was with his legs is that the neck was actually acted as a tripod, so it had to be stable. But if this thing were posable, Man, this thing would just be out of the world. It would just be fantastic. With a stand and a posable neck that would a more posable neck that would really allow the scythe to pose around, this thing would be one of the best toys ever. I'm telling you guys, if they got the materials right and did all that, I would really recommend this thing. But because of what happened with the legs, with how they broke, I don't know if this thing's going to break tomorrow or in 10 years. I cannot predict it, but he has a history of already breaking, so that's strike 1 against him. Strike 2, well, he just doesn't have the posability he needs, like his arms to go forward and back, but not in and out. They do rotate like this, and he just has too many problems with him for me to really recommend him. If you like what you see, and I'm sure most of you will, if you like what you see and you're willing to risk however much you can buy him for on eBay, I got him for $30. Who knows what will be worth when any of you people stumble upon this, because I'm only going to get so many views from subscribers. After that, this is going to be up to people searching for it, and well, believe me, almost no one is searching for Daigunder. So once you see this, I don't know what his price is going to be. I wouldn't pay more than $15 if you could help it. Maybe $20 shipped. If you get it for that price, try him, but anything more than that and you're venturing into risky territory. I'm just very confused, mixed about this figure, because this is so awesome, but everything else about him leading up to this just left such a bad taste in my mouth, and I don't want to recommend something to people that is going to give them the same experience that this gave me. So, I'll give it... I just don't know what to give it. It's such an interesting case. I've never really run into a figure that made me hate it and love it this much. So, I'll just leave it with that. Decide for yourselves. I review Daigunder figures, Web Diver figures, Transformers, Marvel figures, a bunch of other stuff. If any of that sounds interesting, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.